This is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
I, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the book of esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet, and William as the Professor. As the Prophet of Esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports After Show live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay Poss, Jeff Cohen, Jimmy Barada. For those of you who are new to the live stream, welcome. What we do here is we cover all the news, all the topics, all the exciting stories from the world of gaming and esports. We dissect, we analyze all the business implications. But the beauty of this is we cover everything that didn't make it into the podcast, which is a lot these days. And best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. In fact, I will just say, if some of you, maybe keener-eyed people may have noticed that I actually renamed it this week in the little sort of social post, that I'm calling this our weekly news live stream rather than an after show, because we do so much more of the news here. I think it just made a lot more sense. So, welcome everybody. How's everyone doing?
Just
Doing
living
great.
a dream.
Happy to be here.
Every day is a good one.
That sounded so forced.
Yeah, I think you're sensing my irony. It's a good job.
Very nice. Thank you for doing that. Cam says, let's go. I like the rename. Thank you, Cam. I appreciate it coming from you. That means a lot.
I like it too.
Cam's an OG here. Good to see you here, Cam. I feel like it's been a couple weeks since you've been here. Maybe not. I don't know.
No, last week I actually thought, I miss Cam. I hope he's doing well.
I feel like we've had regulars on vacation. I think it's the time of year, where people take summer vacation. So, Cam, I don't know if that was the case. But Christian says, name change sounds good. Thank you, Christian. Appreciate it. Guys, we got a lot to go through. We had a great guest on the podcast this week. We had Patrick Carney, who's the founder and CEO of Tribe Gaming, essentially a mobile esports organization. And he is a very well-known mobile gaming content creator. I think he said he had he has 2.2 million followers on YouTube.
I think it's 2.5 now, but yeah,
2.5 million.
Chief Pat on YouTube if you're a fan of mobile. And
it's
you guys all know Paul's stance on mobile gaming, so this is one you don't want to miss. We talked mobile esports for an hour. It was great.
I think I did not hide my bias at all. So it came out, I think, in full force. But I think for fans, especially of mobile gaming, I think you're going to be interested to see how Pat sort of responds to what may be perceived as my criticisms of mobile and mobile esports, because I think he had a lot of really great answers and a lot of interesting ways of looking at things, and the business opportunity is so massive that it's hard. I think it's hard not to get through the episode you guys are going to listen to tomorrow and be really pretty bullish on mobile in general, the way he talks about it. So.
I don't want to ruin anything in the episode, but I will say, as a mobile fan, I'm going to be forwarding that episode to a number of people because I just love some of Pat's answers, and it just things a lot of people need to know about that part of the industry.
I will also tease we did get to a couple of news topics that I think were important. The first was Riot planning to double down in China and opening a new game development studio in Shanghai. So we talked about that. We also talked about Collective Ace Group raising $100 million for a gaming fund. And this is a gaming fund based in India, investing primarily in India. So what was interesting about these two articles that we discussed, especially with Chief Pat's sort of experience in mobile, was just China and India as markets for mobile gaming, and how important they are for mobile gaming. So
that's quite a large fund. I mean, that's got to be in the top 10 biggest gaming specific VC funds, I would think.
Top 5,
if not
probably.
Top, yeah.
Who's bigger? Galaxy, Bitcraft.
Might be it.
Like other than Galaxy and Bitcraft, I'm trying to think who would be bigger than $100 million fund. Pure play gaming, right? There's a lot of tech VCs who also do gaming, but like pure gaming only. I think it definitely would be top 5. But again, you guys will listen to the episode tomorrow. When you hear Chief Pat talk about the opportunity in India, it's kind of eye-opening, and the kind of numbers being driven by Indian gamers.
Coming from you, that's huge too.
Lindsay, I always recognize the business, the dollar opportunity.
You're a purist, that's all.
I can recognize the business opportunity. I just don't want to play them myself. That's okay, right? All right, we have a lot more. Do you guys want to talk about either of those before we just move on to some new stuff? No? Yes?
New it is.
All right.
Yeah, let's do some new stuff.
Let's do some new stuff. Do we want to start with the punching bag?
Yes.
Maybe.
I assume this is Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
I mean, let's stick to the business commentary, okay? I don't want any social or let's not go down sort of these rabbit holes. Let's stick to the business.
We'll never get out at this rate. Yeah.
It's a business podcast. Let's stick to the business. And I think this was a business story. T-Mobile branding removed from Overwatch and Call of Duty League websites. And the subheadline here is Activision Blizzard lawsuit appears to have prompted a severing of ties. Now, what's interesting is that it was removed quietly. There's been no announcement. This came out 2 days ago. I haven't seen any official announcement since then either. So, all of this has been sort of hush-hush. T-Mobile, obviously a huge sponsor of both leagues. What do you guys make of the business implications, at least for these two leagues, with a huge sort of sponsor like T-Mobile pulling out?
You go, Lindsay.
Will it survive? Forget about the social or politics or any of that. Mm-hmm. If we see more sponsors pulling out, is there a path for these leagues going forward? Is this just a temporary blip, you think? Curious where you guys are on this.
I think that there's still a chance for Activision Blizzard to do some of the things that they've needed to do with these leagues for forever, and perhaps losing a huge sponsor. And this is actually I remember tuning in to some of the Overwatch League games 2 years ago, and this is truly the only sponsor I remember, which means that it was extremely prominent. It's also because T-Mobile's branding is great and the magenta pink sticks out and all of that. But true. I saw T-Mobile easily recognizable, and losing that is just colossal. Obviously, that's not great for the business. If Activision Blizzard decides to use this as a learning experience and pivot away from what they're doing, then I still think that there's time to recover, but that time is in short supply.
Lindsay, you brought up what I think is a really good point, which is this the push that they needed, you think, to maybe revisit the structure of these leagues, the economic split, the strategy? Did they need something like this, like a huge jolt, losing big sponsors like this to make big changes? Jeff, I don't know.
So Paul, I think that's a good point, and I think you know, this may sound crazy, but part of me thinks that what's going on could end up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise for the owners of these leagues, in the sense that it's sort of something that shocks the system, and it can be a catalyst, to your point, for them to create, like, the last thing Activision Blizzard needs right now is more unrest, teams changing hands at really low valuations, owners, just like, these billionaire owners just basically coming out and saying, well, I'm just writing off that investment, like, basically coming out entirely negative. Economically, that wouldn't hurt Activision Blizzard much, but they just don't need any more bad PR. So this could be a catalyst for some of those changes to happen in terms of the franchise economics, league splits, because historically we've always talked about, whenever we talk about the franchise leagues and even just esports overall, the ecosystem, the publishers have all the power. It's really hard to make money as a team because the publishers own the sport. They're going to take so much revenue. Well, now you have a publisher that's potentially significantly weakened and is in a worse negotiating position or leverage position than they probably have been in the last 5 years. So it could be a catalyst for changes. To be honest, we may not even hear about these changes. They could just happen in boardrooms somewhere in California, and we'd never really hear about the economic splits, because I think a lot of the economic splits were never disclosed in the first place to a lot of investors. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time.
Can I ask a hypothetical question, guys? And let me just show you another article. It's more bad news, right? Where the president of Blizzard stepped down. Like, Blizzard's in real big trouble. Again, there's not much business to discuss there, but the house is burning a little bit there. Obviously they have solid businesses. King, has been doing well still. But is this the time to be buying an Activision Blizzard franchise potentially? Right? Like, the house is on fire. Is there some level of desperation there, you think? And is this maximum negotiating leverage for any new owners potentially wanting to come in? Because Call of Duty's league's supposed to be expanding, right?
That's sort of the $1 million question, or
Yeah.
tens of $1 million question. And like any asset, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So it all depends on what price you're trading at. If you're buying an Overwatch League team for $5 million, yeah, maybe it's a good buy low candidate. If you're paying 30, I don't think that's going to happen. Same thing with Call of Duty. I don't know where, maybe Activision feels like they need a PR win, so they're giving these slots out, at a significantly discounted rate or something like that, which kind of gets back to what I was just saying.
Jimmy, I don't know if you had thoughts on this.
It's hard for me to reconcile, and I want to keep it business oriented. I mean, I do see Activision closed out the day today at 81.52. Losing one major sponsor, yeah, that's a big deal. I like to point to Tiger Woods, who was able to lose Gatorade, AT&T, Gillette, and these are, especially with a company, these are long lifespans and things that you can bounce back from. My fear is, and just to kind of play devil's advocate here, or at least look at it differently, is, we're trying to reconcile the business proposition of one of the largest companies in our industry against an issue of culture, I think, and mistreatment, which are tied together, but from a philosophy standpoint, I think in terms of how they're operating themselves and whether or not they choose to institute change, I just don't see a direct parallel there. If change does happen, I think maybe it's a result of other public-facing things that they need to do to get back, on the right track. But again, we're seeing a lot of negative news from their culture on how things were done there, which we're not necessarily touching here, but obviously need a change. And whether or not that will affect their business because of some change with sponsors like T-Mobile, I just don't know. It's hard to see. I think if they lose 2 or 3 more, that's a harder thing to come to grips with. If it's just 1 or 2, they could blame it on that bad press and that their core philosophy is sound, that their business is sound, that their economics are still steadfast, and they'll weather the storm, and they'll come out with some great PR and some diversity hires, et cetera, and get back on track. So again, it's easy for me to see them not change the economics of it and weather the PR storm and win the court of a public opinion through those changes. Go for it, Jeff.
I was gonna cut off the end of your thing. I was gonna bring up two little tidbits from, because I just got done reading the earnings call from yesterday. I thought there was two interesting things here, not necessarily on the esports side, but one, World of Warcraft bookings were up double digits year over year, which I thought was interesting relative to our conversation last week.
Game's not out yet, Jeff.
We shall see in the future, but World of Warcraft, they've got 2 mobile titles in the works for that.
We're going to be okay then.
They seem pretty positive on that, so I thought we would just keep that recurring theme from last week. And then 2, interestingly enough, and this kind of blew my mind a little bit. Like, I knew Call of Duty Mobile had been wildly successful, but the fact that it's already done over $1 billion in revenue is kind of crazy to me. I mean, it hasn't even been 2 years. Like, that's something that when it came out, I think a lot of people were like, man, well, what's it really going to do? Like, a mobile version of Call of Duty, everyone knew it sort of had potential, but the fact that they actually grew it into $1 billion business, we give a lot of shit to Activision on these calls, and rightfully so with a lot of the culture stuff. Clearly that's totally put that aside, but like, that's impressive that they were able to bring that franchise to mobile and have that much success, in addition to obviously what they've done with Warzone and just the regular game. So kudos, I guess, to Activision for COD and mobile.
Interesting data, Jeff, but the anecdotal, the gut feel stuff, right? These are leading indicators. These are not trailing indicators, okay? New World's not out yet, first of all. Second of all,
it's delayed.
It's delayed. It was delayed.
A month.
Well, I think,
but you look at every big streamer on Twitch who was a big Warzone streamer in the last week. What have they been playing?
Apex.
Anyone watch Twitch in the last week?
Apex, yeah, they all switched.
Apex.
Or was it just like a new season? Like, that's all season.
No, it's not that. Like some of the big guys, like Nick Mark, switched over because he said Call of Duty got boring.
We're sick of it.
It wasn't even. I thought it was like
we're
a
all sick
Blizzard
of
or
it.
Activision.
So I have an. I mean, this fall
Protest.
is going to be an interesting. It's almost like, I guess it was 3 years ago when there was, you had Titanfall, Call of Duty, and Battlefield all came out. Plus, I guess maybe it was Red Dead or something like that. It's going to be interesting this year. You have a pretty strong Battlefield. Like, I think most people who've seen the trailer actually are pretty jacked up for it. You have Halo, and then you'll have Call of Duty. So the shooter marketplace is going to be pretty. Plus you still have Apex, you have Fortnite. Like, it's going to be a little bit of a battle royale, if you will, in the shooter market. And who knows? Call of Duty maybe is in a little bit of a weaker position.
Oh, you added.
That was good. I needed
There
that.
it is. Yeah.
I just think Call of Duty, one of them is going to be. We know one of them will be the big loser, and who knows? It could be Call of Duty.
I think, it's true. New Battlefield, right? Apex seeing a resurgence. New MMO like New World pulling people away in a lot of their time. I think this is going to be the tough Halo. You're right. Halo Infinite.
Defiance coming out too. The new free to play.
Yeah. I don't know. That may last only a week, but no.
Probably the weakest argument out there. Yeah. But I wanted that.
But no, you're right, Jeff. I'm curious. Did that come out in the call at all? That there's headwinds for Call of Duty potentially?
No, they're super bullish on Call of Duty. I mean, they actually their guidance for next quarter, for the third quarter, was actually much stronger than I think people anticipated. So I think they're seeing positive trends, and yeah, they did not mention any. Their question came up from an analyst who asked basically exactly what I just said, and they sort of were like, "Well, no, we're feeling good.
We're good."
Yeah.
John says, agree with Jimmy, but maybe clubs and orgs can argue they should let their Overwatch League and CDL teams reflect their brand names to protect their brand value. I don't know, but it's an argument. I mean, John, it's a good point. If they're going to get that at any point in time, now's the time to be negotiating for it. It's just, I don't. Somehow I feel like Activision Blizzard is not even feeling like they're not in negotiating mood, even with the house burning.
There was one more stat that I'll bring just to be the Activision Blizzard stand, because I thought this was also insane. There were more hours played this past quarter of Call of Duty, like cumulative hours by all the players, than the entirety of 2019.
I mean,
So it
that's
just shows you
probably
like
enough,
how
right?
insane like engagement is right now.
But again,
And that's
right, but
nuts if you think about it.
and again, that just goes to the point where they're doing something right. So like this is a cultural negative thing that they need to weather, but like why would they change anything if COD is up like
On the
that
Activision side, that
significantly?
is,
On
not
the
necessarily
Activision
what
side,
it is.
yeah. I want, yeah. If you could
Um,
pull up Cam too, because Cam has some great things that I feel so hard.
Christian says battle royale and shooter market. Christian, don't laugh at Jeff's
encourage him.
jokes. Yeah, don't encourage him.
him. He doesn't.
Um,
Juiced.
And Cam says cheaters in Warzone is at an all-time worst spot. Yeah, Cam, you're totally right. That's why I think most of the streamers have
Yeah.
switched because of the cheating. And it's weird
Did-
that they can't figure that out, right? Like,
Well, did you all happen to see there was a long expose article, whatever, in Vice about the largest cheating empire, and it was all built around Call of Duty, and
oh, really?
it was a really well written article. Yeah. It was all
I
Interesting.
that.
loved it. I want to get that from you later.
I didn't catch that
Okay.
expose, Lindsay. Maybe post it in the chat.
I don't know where that came from, honestly.
Lindsay, actually, if you find it,
Popped out.
I'll post it. I'll post it in the chat, or if
I
you
was
can
saying
post
it
it.
because it was
Um,
great. Yeah.
And Cam says, unbelievable that after their insane last quarter, they still can't produce an anti-cheat. Yeah, exactly. Like, you have
they don't
billions of dollars. It's not that hard, right?
They don't care. That's the only answer, right? It's the only answer. They don't care.
It's ironic because I feel like Activision Blizzard, from a purely business standpoint, does a lot of things right, but from a game standpoint, they seem to miss. I don't know. It's just, they seem to only get 80% of the way there for whatever reason. It's never a slam dunk. Let's move on, guys. Let's talk about. We have a lot of other stuff actually, including other earnings reports. Jeff, if you wanna dive into that. I don't know if you've followed all of them this week, or. But let's talk about Fortnite.
Enough to be dangerous, not enough. I wouldn't,
Oh my goodness.
this is not investment advice. I mean, I'm happy
enough
to
squeeze
juice
the
on any
juice.
company. Yeah, I'm happy to squeeze the juice, but that doesn't mean I'm right or knowledgeable.
That is the next piece of merch we have to do. It has to be something juice related. I feel like.
I've earned it.
Owen says, "Hi everyone. Hey Owen, welcome. Good to see you back." Let's talk about Fortnite, because Fortnite seems to be in the news a lot more recently, I feel like. Another big collaboration, and this one is a concert series with Ariana Grande headlining it. So the headline here, Ariana Grande headlining Fortnite's next concert series. Grande's first Rift Tour performance takes place Friday. And so she is headlining this big concert series inside of Fortnite. It's going to run from August 6th to 8th. So that's what, Friday through Sunday. And they recommend being ready in game 60 minutes before any of the performances. And supposedly they think it's going to fill up, which I have no doubt that it will. Anyone here think this is not going to draw massive numbers? Like, is this...
What do you mean by massive? Because like there's Travis Scott Fortnite massive.
Yeah,
and then
so
there's
and
DJ
Jimmy,
Marshmello massive.
I know you.
Which one was bigger?
Travis Scott.
Yeah.
And I know you were
Travis Scott
involved,
by a lot.
right, Jimmy?
Marshmallow was first,
Yeah.
all right.
Marshmello was
Correct.
first. I was involved in the Travis Scott one. I think I've shared this on the show before, maybe on my podcast, where basically Travis wanted to get into video games, didn't really know what that meant or what it looked like. I fortunately knew some people on his team, and we started talking about this epic proposal and on what, they didn't understand things like microtransactions, right? Or what these live events could look like. So I was kind of helping to bridge that disconnect with their knowledge in a new ecosystem. This Ariana Grande thing to me is very interesting because she's just, I don't know, I guess who listens to her music, because I'm not a fan of hers. It's like Travis, I know who listens to him. I know he's a natural fit with the Fortnite audience. I know Ariana Grande is huge, but like I would assume she skews more a female, wouldn't she? I mean, maybe that's just me being gender biased, and I would apologize for that, but I don't have this data in front of me to be like, here are Ariana Grande's listeners. Here's the overlap with Fortnite gamers. It's a natural fit. The way DJ Marshmello and Travis, I knew. That
Perhaps
absolutely
YouGov
were.
has the data.
But Jimmy, does it matter who the artist is? at this point? Meaning, if you get a sufficiently big name, is this the sort of thing where people show up because it's an event, right? It's a thing in Fortnite. So if you play Fortnite, you're going to show up. Like, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, does it matter who the headliner is? It could be Ariana Grande. It could be I don't know. Pick some other current
does
pop star.
It does for the microtransaction. So maybe not for the viewership, because anyone's going to show up to watch because it's a unique event. Even if there's not an artist, right? Even if it's just like the end of the world black hole event, people are going to show up to watch because it's a Fortnite thing and they do it so well. Where it matters is who's going to buy the Ariana Grande skin, which, by the way, I think a lot of people will, because because all these skins in Fortnite are just like hotcakes when they're limited release, and when you know you're not going to get it, they sell very, very well. But I think in terms of the success of the event, it comes down to pairing that talent with what are the in-game purchasable items, and that's how I would measure the success more than the viewership. Personally, is how well they sold.
So they are obviously going to sell items. Sorry, I didn't mention that. They're going to sell a skin based on Grande as part of its Icon series, which previously featured with LeBron, who we talked about, and Ninja. And you're going to they're going to have a backpack based on her pet pig, and if you attend the concert, you get a special umbrella glider. So, you get some exclusives for attending. So there's a reason to show up. I guess the reason I'm pushing in that direction is, at some point when these things become even more commonplace in Fortnite, and when they become commonplace in other games that can allow for this kind of integration, right? Do we get then, like, is it no longer sort of a cool, unique event, and all of a sudden who it is matters a lot more? Like, does the novelty wear off, and are we close to the novelty wearing off with these sort of concerts in games kind of integrations?
Does anyone?
I don't have it. I mean, you go first. You are way more into this than I am.
Okay. I mean, maybe I am really into it. Like, I don't think the novelty's worn off for me, at least, and I don't think from viewership numbers it just keeps growing. So I don't think it's worn off for the audiences either. I think you could do these twice as often and still have success. I think other games could rip off this whole concept and have tremendous success as well.
Do you think there's just insatiable demand, Jimmy, for music and game integration right now?
Well, part of it is I would love it if that were the reason, but it's hard because COVID has shut down all touring and all live music. So this was a nice alternative. Like, how would the astronomical event have done if he was actually on tour, around that time? Actually, was he on tour? Sorry. The last 2 years, are kind of blurring in my mind now. It's just great for live entertainment that we're currently like broadcasting. But I think part of the demand is because those concerts haven't been accessible, those live events. But even if they were, how easy is it to log into a free-to-play game and just watch this unique digital experience where the metaverse really is connecting all these people in new ways, where you can not only are you so. Here's an example I'll leave with is, I went to Glastonbury in the UK, which is kind of like their version of Coachella. I saw Adele, Coldplay, all these, headliners. And for the Coldplay segment, we had like these light up bracelets that they passed out. You'd raise your hand in there when they told you to. The colors would coordinate, and the crowd would kind of like a rainbow would wave. It was, I like Coldplay. I'm not a huge mega fan, but that was top 4 concert experiences in my life. Translate that now to the Fortnite events, where you're buying the skins, you're buying the emotes, and then you're in game and they turn off fighting, so you can only do certain actions, and you're part of that same unified experience where all of your characters are doing the same dance moves, or I don't know, it's just like, it's the shared experience that if you're a part of it, it's incredibly exciting. And just because it's online or in person, or it's Ariana Grande or someone else, I don't think it matters. I think people just I think Gen Z in particular and Gen Alpha like being a part of something. And so again, my initial hesitation was Ariana Grande, but now as we're talking through it, I don't see how it's not a success, honestly.
I just see the plus and minus here, right? Like, if it's the novelty of the shared experience driving it, then you're like, wow, this is great for gaming, because it doesn't matter who you put as a headliner. It doesn't matter who the musician is, right? This is always going to succeed. And on the flip side, I'm like, well, like at some point the shared experience novelty maybe goes away, and then if if you are dependent on the headliner, that's not good either. Jeff, I don't know if you were going to say
Well,
something.
I was just, my take was sort of similar to yours. And then it's also like, I wonder, like, at what point, like, what's the end game here for Fortnite? Is it just to become like I guess we know sort of what it is. It's to become this metaverse. But, if you're continually holding concerts, at some point, does that diminish the actual game of Fortnite? Should they have their own separate concert experience where it's only open during these concerts, and maybe it's a little bit different to attract maybe a different older audience? Is there an opening for someone to create a game that's literally just virtual concerts or virtual events? I don't know. But it seems like the only time I hear about Fortnite anymore is these,
it's true.
These
It's
concerts
true.
and big
Well,
events.
or other activations.
I don't know if that's bad, but
no. We were just talking about it last week because they just put the Ferrari
LeBron.
in there.
But I feel
Yeah,
like
and
that is the
LeBron
Fortnite's that's
Oh,
always like the
yeah.
Fortnite story, right? It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, there's this great new game mode. It's always like, look who they've partnered with this week.
right.
Mhm. But it's been working. I mean,
That's
every
true.
activation they've done has been successful. And Jeff, I disagree with you a little bit because I understand where you're coming from in saying that they could turn from, a game into like an events platform, but they've done a pretty good job of separating it out and creating unique experiences for viewers that are kind of outside of the game. And I think so far it's been really well done. Jimmy, when it comes to the audience question, I actually think this is going to be kind of an awesome metric for measuring what audiences want, just because Ariana Grande is a huge, massive pop superstar, definitely caters really well to the Gen Z audience. But you're right, she does cater more female. Will that matter? In this, I think that's going to be a super interesting question to see how she compares to Travis Scott. Travis Scott's definitely a more natural fit, but maybe he's not, and we'll get to see the numbers on that, and that'll be really cool.
She's a megastar. I'm not taking anything away from her. I agree with you. And it's funny because as she's risen to such incredible prominence, most noticeably the last 3 years of her career, where I think she was Billboard's Woman of the Year last year, some other notable achievements like that with the Grammys.
Jimmy knows his pop culture.
Jimmy was in the music business.
If it wasn't esports, I would be on a music podcast right now. I've had a lot of friends, male friends in particular, older millennial friends that are admitting, that they just love blasting and singing along to Ariana Grande, which I love to hear too. So,
what are her big songs? I don't
it.
even know.
Oh my gosh!
I know some, but like I don't know. Sing them, Lindsay. Sing.
No,
I
I want to
refuse to sing, but
I mean, you don't think the audience wants to hear Lindsay sing Ariana Grande? You're crazy.
I don't think that they want that.
Cam says, "I can't wait. Who's logging in with me? I love it. Won't be me, Cam, but I still love you." And Cam says, "I think the biggest thing is meeting expectations with the artists." Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan, though, I think your expectations are gonna be met automatically, right? And if you're a fan of Fortnite, does anyone walk away from this thinking this didn't meet my expectations? Probably not, right? Probably not. Feels unlikely.
Well, again, we got to see what it sells, I think, because I have an understanding of the negotiation that happens between the artist and Epic, and on what they're going to offer as far as an appearance fee or some type of blended rev share. And we need to see what it sells, because I will tell you that if they don't make back, even if they net zero, right, on everything, because maybe she commanded an enormous fee and Epic said let's pay it. If they net zero, executives over at Activision are going to look at this and say, well, that was a failure,
Yeah.
Right.
Are they paying these people, like outside of the rev share, obviously, but are they like
sure.
paying it upfront? Really?
My guess would be yes. I don't know, Jimmy. I don't know if you have.
I can't really share what I know about
I
that.
figure as much, but like, I mean, it's I don't know. To some extent, you would think like it's still novel enough that these artists would almost be paying them in the sense of
that's part of the problem, right? If it's novel to the business manager's not like, hey, let's take a flyer on this thing, right? The business manager, the more of a flyer it is, the more I think the business manager wants cash up front.
But I'm
in
just I'm
traditional-
thinking in the sense of, oh, maybe, yeah, I guess if it's a flyer, but I was thinking like the Super Bowl, like didn't they like flip the model a few years ago where like the artist paid to perform at the Super Bowl?
that was just this year. That was
ridiculous.
just the weekend, and that was because he wanted some creative liberties and freedom to do some things that he wanted to do. But typically the artist will command a massive appearance fee in the $500,000 and up range just to show up and perform. And depending on your clout, you can also then participate in a share of ticket sales, keeping 100% of merch sales or some astronomical percentage of merch. There's broadcast and redistribution rights if you're filming. So it really depends on how big the artist is. And when you have these A-list Grammy-winning it girls like Ariana Grande, you're going to imagine that she has very strong negotiating power compared to someone much smaller who still could be a household name, but for whatever reason, is not far along in their career. And maybe they command half of that, which is still a great payday, right? So it just comes down to, I think, how familiar you are with that artist and how strong they are currently in the public eye. It's all about their agents selling them, right? And this is the it girl. You got to have her.
John says, "Sing them, Jimmy." John, I will get Jimmy to sing them when we hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Okay,
Hopefully, no algorithms will take it down either. So you need to.
I'm happy to be a background dancer for that. I'll chip in if we get to 1 million subscribers.
We'll do a duo.
Yeah.
Owen says blasting 7 rings in Fortnite seems like the most Gen Z thing to date. This is true. This is a very Gen Z phrase to even be saying. Can we stay on this metaverse theme, guys? Because I have another very, I think, metaverse kind of story, which I feel like didn't get a lot of play this week, but I felt was significant. And this is, the headline here is gamers pledge $203 million in Ember Sword's virtual land sale. So basically what has happened here is 35,000 gamers have pledged $203 million to buy virtual land in a game called Ember Sword, which, by the way, is not out yet. So it doesn't actually exist yet. And what the game's developer is going to do is they're going to sort through all of these applications, so the 35,000 people who applied to own land, essentially, and they're going to choose 6,000 of them to purchase 6,000 plots of land that are available in the game. So you had 35,000 basically commit dollars, and with not all knowing 100% for sure they're going to be selected, but 35,000 gamers ponying up dollars to own virtual land in an unreleased game. Is this, I mean, if I don't know, if this doesn't say something very significant about the state of people's enthusiasm, maybe about a potential metaverse, what does? I'm curious, what do you guys take away from this? Do you take away crazy? Do you take away opportunity? Do you take away this is a sign of things to come? This is a one-off? Where do you guys fall on this?
I mean, 10 years ago, people were taking real, and today, and also today now, but 10 years ago or more, 15, people were taking real money and they were using it to buy fake video game money to then use that to buy fake video game items, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't see this as that much different, honestly. It's kind of scary because it's just it's
well, the game's not out, land. So right. There's maybe a question of is this really prudent to be buying land in a game that may never see the light of day or may not be good, or but I see your point. You're saying, Jimmy, that this is not that different than things we've been doing for the last 10 years anyways. It's just we're labeling it different. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I am hearing Lex Luthor in my mind, right? Talking about you can, the value of land. I can't remember the quote. It's one of those Superman quotes, right? Where he's anyways, yeah, I think it's not that different. It's a good summary.
This is a complete tangent, but if they added a real estate mode to The Sims, I would 1,000% play it. And I would buy and sell all of the virtual lands.
I mean, that's why don't they do that? Why don't they do that, right?
Well, can I just add one little wrinkle here, because it does say in this article that if you own land in the game, right, it's not just owning virtual pixels that have no purpose, I guess, in the sense that if you own land in this game, you share what they call in the trading fees, and you earn in-game crypto, basically, or, I guess just crypto, but it's a token that the game has developed from economic activity that happens on or around your land. Does this change it at all for you? Is this now more like buying real estate?
If you could have, I don't know what fancy cities there are in the Alliance, but if you could have bought all the surrounding land around Orgrimmar or any of these WoW headquarters, knowing that, before you knew that the game was the massive success that it became, would you not take that risk? It sounds awesome to me.
I can tell you, in the few hours I played of New World, the only goal I really had was to buy a house, which has no purpose other than being purely cosmetic. But yeah, you're right, Jimmy. You would have. It's just, I'm not sure I understand what the end game is for all of these things, because fundamentally they still feel very much gated by the game you play, right? There's no fabric interconnecting all these things, right? If I don't play Ember Sword, the land's worth nothing to me, right? Which is very different from, because call it a true metaverse has some direct corollary to the universe we live in, right? And if I go buy land in China, it's still worth something. Just because it's not in New York City, it still has value to me. I can still extract value from it. Yeah. Games are gated fundamentally. I don't know.
There's also besides the gating issue, there's also the life cycle issue, right? Where how long does the land in this game even stay accessible? How long are we going to get a Ember Sword vanilla or whatever in 20 years? So that's we're still a long ways away from, I think, the Ready Player One Oasis kind of metaverse, where this is just a self-sustaining, right, perpetual thing.
Can I add one last thing that I think will set Jeff off? Jeff, 70 to 80% of the applications for this virtual land, came from individual gamers. The rest came from other groups, which included legitimate real estate investment firms.
Really? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know why you think that would set me off. What was the spend? I was trying to, before my computer shut off or whatever, I was trying to calculate what was the spend per person. It was 206 million divided.
It's 203 million over 6,000 plots that are available.
Let's do the math. What is that in terms of per? I guess what I'm getting at is it's an incredibly high amount per person, right?
It's about $33,833 per plot.
Yeah, that's a lot. For the think about the average in person's not spending $35,000 on a piece of fake real estate. It's really high for spend per person, which means maybe there was some people real estate funds that bought big chunks. I think what Jimmy said makes all the sense in the world. This is a game that we have excuse my ignorance, I don't even know if this game is out yet. I don't know if it's not. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you buy land in this game?
Well, I mean, I'm super hyped on the idea, but at the same time, this could be the biggest scam in the history of gaming. You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
We don't know where it lands yet.
I love the idea of digital ownership, and I think eventually, we talk about this every week, it seems but once we get to the true metaverse, you're going to have to be able to own things in that metaverse. There's going to have to be a digital currency. There's going to have to be persistent ownership. But I think you both made good points in the sense of, we don't know if this isn't going to be the metaverse. So buying
can I just make a point though? Because I think land is one of the few things in the eventual metaverse that I struggle to believe will have any long-term value. Because
unless fundamentally, that's resources.
It's not scarce in any way, right? The way real land is.
Just thinking that. Not to
Well,
mention.
why do you assume it's not scarce?
Because in a true metaverse, right, a true non-gated by one game metaverse, anyone should be able to tack on and create, right, in a true metaverse. That it's not gated by one company or one game or anything like that, right? That there's fabric you can build on top of. And if that's the case, well, then land sort of seems infinite.
There's also the restrictions, not just in terms of like the amount of land, but also like the physical barrier of land, right? Where, going through tunnels or around it.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Like in video games, you hop on your mountain. Like I'm not going on the road.
That's it.
I'm gonna. So land acts differently.
I spend a lot of money to live where I live because I can walk to Central Park, right? In a virtual world, distance has there's no punishing
Right.
value for distance.
Right.
Part of me is wondering if these will fundamentally have to be tenets of the metaverse. Like I think scarcity will have to be a fundamental part of the like if you create a metaverse where everyone can just create infinite amounts of land and goods and anything, it sort of loses any kind of value. You know what I mean? Like there will not be an economy if there's no scarcity.
That's not true, because anyone can go create a YouTube video today, but some YouTube videos you'd pay a lot more for than for others, right? Like, just because anyone can create,
Juice.
you got juice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but there's, yeah, I guess what you're talking about is differentiation. But like, if anyone could just tack on additional quote unquote land, like I just don't see how that could theoretically work. Like one would just like the computing power that it would take. I don't know how you could physically house all that, but also it's just, we're almost getting into theoretical concepts of like the universe endlessly expanding.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, how does all of that get stored and processed? Like, how do I know where you are if you could theoretically be endlessly away? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being
Cam
ridiculous
says,
right now.
yeah, the
Stop
metaverse
me.
theoretically is infinite, which I believe also to be true. Just
Again, I'm really hyped by the story. I just love the idea that like, this is happening, that you have real estate companies buying fake video game land in a video game. I hope for their sake that the game is a massive success, that they could put billboards on that land, or I don't know, charge a tax to ride through it and force funnel mounts that have to travel through their land. I'm not sure, but there's more questions than there are answers here.
guys, look, can we do actually Cam says like a Minecraft server? Yeah, exactly. I don't you can extend these things infinitely if the technology allows it. Can we do 2 Riot / Tencent stories? Because
Let's do it.
and I want to put them in a specific order here. And we'll do you guys want to start with the good news or the bad news? Lindsay, good news or bad news?
Let's start with the bad and end with the good.
Okay, let's start with the bad. Okay, so this is Tencent, and I'll call it bad news. But the headline here is Tencent vows fresh gaming curbs after spiritual opium, and this is a direct quote, attack zaps $60 billion. So the story here is Tencent said on Tuesday that it would put more restrictions on minors playing their video games. And basically there was a state media article that came out and said online games were spiritual opium. In other words, a drug. And so Tencent's shares got absolutely killed, wiped 60 billion of market cap, lost almost 10% of its total value. And, just because of this, state-sponsored article, the state media article. Anyone here think, like, if you're an investor in Tencent, are you worried when you see something like this, where literally, one article can wipe $60 billion of market cap from the business, and it like, let's face it, it's not like, hey, no one's playing League anymore. It's not like Valorant is blowing up your PC. It's not. This is literally, we think games are spiritual opium.
Well, I think clearly here we have to, it's a Chinese market dynamic issue. And this has been particularly highlighted in the last month or so with Chinese stocks. You had Didi, the Uber of China, came public, and basically, I forget what did they get banned in China or something? Like their app got basically taken out of the app store, and the stock went down like 40%. Then you had these Chinese online learning companies where the government basically said like these can no longer be for-profit businesses, and like they literally just like went bankrupt. It was like, well, your business is no longer allowed to be a business. And no one's saying that's what's happening here. Obviously, otherwise Tencent wouldn't be down 10%. It would be down, 90%. But there's certain press in China where when they write an article, it's pretty well understood that that's the government sort of saying this digital opium line or spiritual opium or whatever, which is a bizarre way to phrase it, / interesting way to phrase it. But I think if you're an investor, you are worried that if the government is starting to want to crack down on gaming, the Chinese government has a lot of power, and that is a massive risk. Like think about what happened back, I think in 2018 or 2019, whenever the government stopped approving games for like 6 months, Tencent went down like 40% over that period because basically the government said, hey, we're no longer approving games, like no new games. That's something that can happen in China. So
are you guys not
you got to pay attention to it.
I mean, Jeff, it's a great point, but I like just extend that one step further. Are we not massively then worried about the mobile gaming market as a whole with how focused it is on China? And I'll just read some of the article. This is obviously translated, right? But it says, in the original article, the newspaper had singled out Honor of Kings, which is a mobile game, as the most popular online game among students who it said played for up to 8 hours a day. Spiritual opium has grown into an industry worth hundreds of billions, the newspaper said. No industry, no sport can be allowed to develop in a way that will destroy a generation.
Those are some serious fighting words.
Well, so there's historical context here that we can draw upon in the United States, and that's in the forms of the congressional hearings in the 1990s on video games. And I think that it just goes to show how behind in culture that a lot of governments are, first of all. And I think secondly, it goes to show that the regulatory regime is incredibly important for the growth of these companies. And it is very unfortunate because I know that you all have really applauded a lot of the moves that Tencent has made in the past, particularly in the past 2 or 3 years, but extending back to the past 5 or 10 years, they've had a brilliant strategy for growth. But none of that matters if your company is headquartered in a regulatory regime that can control it.
The Chinese government is essentially saying we've been applauding drug dealers. I mean, in no sort of uncertain terms.
Yeah, particularly
drug
comparing it to
children.
opium is it's such a stark, I mean, when you look at Chinese history, like that is such a stark, like that's the worst. That's like saying like,
oh,
you're as bad as Coke in Miami in the 90s. Yeah. Like there's just,
you might argue that this regulatory sort of overhang might be also why Tencent is so aggressive, expanding outside the US, investing in all these other businesses. Now, obviously, the Chinese government could snap their fingers and literally make them divest all those assets or whatever, do any sort of things that wouldn't be legal here in the U.S. But it is clear the Tencent strategy the last 2 or 3 years has been to diversify outside of China. So I think we're sort of seeing why.
Right, but now. They still suffered a $60 billion loss with one.
Oh, no, of course, I'm not saying right, but like they can't. Just the government. That's where they.
I know,
but meaning
political system they operate under.
The extension of your point is, will we see them accelerate their investments outside China, maybe? And that could be good for the U.S. gaming market potentially, right? If we see a lot of Tencent dollars coming to the States.
I have wondered why we haven't seen more of an exodus from China. Just especially after Didi's listing in particular. And I mean, there's been all kinds of problems with all these large tech companies within China. And I keep wondering if we'll be seeing that innovation eventually move outside. But I don't know what the dangers are to the people who actually run the companies. So maybe we won't.
I mean, people often ask me why I don't build companies targeted at these markets. I mean, this is why. To not have to deal with things like this. But But Jeff, you've made me a believer in that. I think this might be a good thing for the U.S. market if Tencent starts applying dollars, and they're smarts, frankly, because they really are, I think, some of the smartest gaming people in the room, to the U.S. market in a much more concerted way. We may see even crazier prices for developers in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you the good news story, which is this is a Tencent property, so it's not Tencent directly, but it's 100% Tencent owned, and it's Riot. And the headline here is LCS lands 7-year FTX sponsorship deal as first crypto exchange partner of any Riot league. So it's not announced yet. These are just rumors. The new partnership will be announced supposedly just months after the LCS barred TSM from using the same sponsor in its name. So does anyone think that barring of TSM using it was because they wanted sponsor dollars for themselves? I didn't see anything. I haven't seen any. It's not in this article or in any other article I saw in terms of the size of the deal. Just that it was 7-year deal. But I assume it's going to be substantial, right? If you think TSM was 210 million,
Yeah, what do we think
over
it's gonna
10
be?
years?
You would think it would have to be significantly bigger, although TSM renamed the team, but it's interesting. I mean, this should be a recurring segment now. Like, who
Right.
is a
Getting
crypto
money from
exchange?
FTX?
Right,
Who is
who's
getting
getting
money from
FTX
crypto?
money?
Like me, please.
John says, I've never heard of an undisclosed exclusivity, but hey, the industry is young. Well, I mean, John, none of this is announced. This is all, journalists talking to sources and getting whatever details they can. I'm sure the number is going to come out. I'm sure there's going to be a big announcement. I'm sure they're going to be very proud of it. Maybe we need to have Matt from Riot back on and really corner him on how much they're getting from FTX. But I don't know, guys. Any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on size? I mean, we can speculate. Is it bigger than the TSM deal? Easy question. Yes or no?
So
I think so.
I would think so. Yeah.
Jeff?
Is it bigger than the TSM deal? I'd guess yes.
How much money does FTX have to throw around? I mean, they got TSM,
All
they got
of it,
Riot,
Jimmy.
Miami Heat.
It's like the real estate in the metaverse. There's no limit.
Just one little clarification point. Under the deal, Riot Games will be able to remove the FTX branding, though, from assets in countries where crypto are regulated or is not allowed, basically. So
legal caveat.
Legal caveat.
Yeah.
It says, the article says specifically it's different from TSM's deal where they were not allowed to remove it. Which is interesting because Riot did get them to remove it. So I don't know. FTX throwing money around in gaming, a lot of crypto money in gaming right now. Trend that we will see continue, or?
I think so.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Such a natural application of
Yep.
crypto to the esports gaming audience, right?
I guess the
I
only
think-
question is is there some disincentive? Like once you're, or maybe it's like the Coke and Pepsi thing. Like you just have to, if FTX sponsors an esports team, does, I guess Coinbase is a competitor, right? To FTX. Like, does Coinbase have to sponsor an esports team, or they seed that market, or is it like, okay, hey, you take esports, like we'll take the NBA and you take the NFL and we'll take MLB and you take the Olympics and we'll take whatever. I don't know.
I mean, Jeff, your question's a good one. And let me just flip it a bit, because you have FTX here, right? And I think we all agree crypto companies going after the gaming audience makes 1,000% sense, right? There's so much overlap. They're the perfect target audience. They're tech savvy. They're young. They're digital first, right? There's a million reasons in terms of overlap why crypto companies want to go after gamers. But then you get FTX, big deal with TSM, big deal with Riot. Okay, I get it. But then you throw in the Miami Heat and you're like, okay, it's basketball. It's maybe the coolest of the traditional sports. All right, I'm with you.
Not maybe.
Miami's a big crypto hub.
Oh, by the
too.
way,
They have that whole
hockey
stupid, like,
hockey has the
crypto
youngest
thing.
audience, just FYI. But
They don't know. They don't know better,
That's
Paul.
Yeah.
So you're
All
like, oh,
three of them.
hold on, stay with me. So you're like, okay, Heat, sort of with you, and then it's like, then Tom Brady and Giselle as shareholders, and I'm like, okay, football now, like losing you a little bit here on Giselle, and then the MLB, which they signed a deal with, and supposedly the umpires have FTX on their sleeve.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, now I don't get it, right? Like we went from gamers that made all the sense in the world to Major League Baseball umpires.
Well, if the answer is they're trying to get literally everyone on Earth, then they seem to have covered the whole spectrum, which maybe that's not a bad strategy. Think about it.
We'll probably see renewals in the esports, right? And maybe just those one-offs for the traditional sports. What I want to see is FTX with these $200 million branding deals or whatnot, but that all being in crypto. Like, how are these transactions? Do we even know that? You know, like I want to know if that deal was in crypto, if these teams were accepting $200 million crypto payouts. That to me is the headline, is, you know, FTX buys TSM outright for just a fat wad of crypto.
My guess is not, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, because that would tell me more about the crypto space than anything, and I don't know. That's what I want to read, at least.
I love Cam's point here. I love Cam's point. I don't think it's the case because I know people who are involved here, but like, sounds like one of those shady F1 sponsors at this point. This is what Cam says, which it's true. In F1, there have been quite a few of those who throw a lot of money around and end up being not real, but. I don't think that's the case here. I think they raised a ton of money, something to the tune of $1 billion or something like that. So, you know, what's a few $100 million to Riot, TSM, MLB umpires, and the Miami Heat? Which is, again, the most odd group of characters, but it's an interesting one. Let's move on, guys. Let's talk about. Actually, let's do. Let's do a YouGov segment. Actually, before I do the YouGov segment, we do have a YouGov segment this week. Before I go to the YouGov segment, I want to do one more. I just want to do one kind of silly story that's a recurring theme, but I want to get it in here. And that is Microsoft with yet another product. Okay. We saw the Microsoft fridge. Everyone got excited about the Microsoft fridge. How does everyone feel about Microsoft donuts? Xbox donuts. Yes? No? The future of Microsoft's
I feel
business?
great about this. This is great.
Hard.
This
Yeah.
is great.
Love it.
Why is it limited edition? Again, with the fridge, this
Right.
should be the business. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Every kid's birthday at school will have Microsoft donuts. Like, it's a no-brainer.
I see no flaws in this logic.
No, the PlayStation cupcakes will come out next week.
Why has Microsoft not acquired Krispy Kreme because then you're totally vertically integrated, right? Which makes so much sense. If they're going to buy Bethesda, might as well buy Krispy Kreme. Jeff, do you like this as the ex-analyst?
I love it. I mean, who doesn't love Krispy Kreme? Let's be honest.
Oh,
And
you
I
like
think
my
Krispy
idea
Kreme-
of them buying Krispy Kreme?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, good.
I mean, Cam says GameStop is saved. Maybe GameStop should buy Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want a donut when they
It's a
buy
solid.
their
It's at least one
used
solid
video
revenue
game?
stream.
This is how they save the business, GameStop. So if you're listening,
corporate finance at its best.
that's it. CEO of GameStop. All you need to do is buy Krispy Kreme. All right, let's move on.
All you should do is tweet about it, and the stock will probably double. He doesn't even have to actually do it.
But cryptically, right? Like sort of cryptically. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Just
you
post
can't
like a
make it
picture of
obvious.
Homer Simpson, and it's like, Homer Simpson loves donuts. He must be buying Krispy Kreme to the moon.
All right, we're gonna do a YouGov segment. Before that, I just want to mention, for those of you who don't know, the Business of Esports, guys, is supported by YouGov. They're a leading international research firm. They supply the best data on gamers, games, esports fans around the world. Show them some love. Go check them out if you're in the industry at all. if you're looking for data, you're looking to support your sales, like when you're selling, right? You need data to be able to sell to a customer, to be able to prove why, this makes sense for them to do. We've used it for our own sales efforts. The data is incredibly actionable. It's incredibly valuable. Go check them out, yougov.com/gaming-esports. They have a bunch of free reports, a bunch of free data there that you can go check out. So I put that link in the chat for everybody. I have a couple of YouGov stats this week, which I thought were interesting. So let me just bring them up here. And this one was about. It's actually a new product, I believe. Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's what they call YouGov Teen Profiles. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a relatively new product.
I thought it was new as well.
And this is what they're calling a better way to understand and engage Gen Z. So like, I felt like this was great in the context of us talking about Ariana Grande and, all these other sort of Gen Z kind of activations.
This is perfect. Jeff's forte.
So let me just read some of the highlights from this study, okay? So the headline, it first starts with teenagers dream of fame and creating video content, okay? And here's the backup in terms of data. As many Gen Z teens say they want to work for themselves as say they want to work for a company. So it's about half-half, okay? Which historically has not been the case, right? Like that's a large percentage of people who want to work for themselves. 1 in 10 Gen Z respondents aged 13 to 17 say they want to be a vlogger, YouTuber, or professional streamer. That's 11% of all Gen Z, right? If you extrapolate to the entire population, which is massive, 11% want to be a vlogger, YouTuber, or professional streamer. Now, if you look at which ad channels, okay, are most likely to grab Gen Z's attention, among boys aged 13 to 17, what channel do you guys think is the top to grab Gen Z's attention for boys aged? And let me see if I can get this picture in big up. Hang on, because it's really fascinating.
MTV.
Yes, that's exactly.
CNBC. What was this? What channel?
Let me. I'm gonna share the screen so you guys can see this because I think you're gonna be really quite surprised. So let me make this bigger. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
So if you look at Gen Z boys, age 13 to 17, social media, right? Social media is 28%. Video games, 24%. So for boys age 13 to 17, video games are basically nearly as effective as marketing through social media. It's basically one and the same in terms of effectiveness, which I think is incredible. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. But what's interesting is maybe the difference with girls. Because if you notice, social media, like it's a drastic change between boys and girls in terms of effectiveness of video games as an ad channel. Lindsay, I don't know if you have thoughts on this.
I mean, not anything other than it does make sense to me. I still think that there's a barrier with getting girl gamers to play the type of live games that where advertising would actually be effective. And it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem because there's so many boys already on the platform that it can make it a little bit.
But the study, the way it's built, right, should removes the factor of like less girl gamers than boy gamers because or maybe it doesn't, right? Because you're polling girls age 13 to 17 broadly, so U.S. teens broadly. Is the hidden variable here that you just have many fewer female gamers, and therefore it's always going to skew a statistic like this? Not that girls respond less effectively to video game ads?
No, I think it's more of a question of what types of games girls are playing. Can you scroll up a little bit just so I can see scroll up to the title
headline.
of it? Yeah, so I like, and this is again completely like, this is all, what's the word? It's all quantitative or qualitative. It's not, I don't have any numbers on this, but one of my guesses would be that a lot more boys play games that are online, which means that there are opportunities for activations. Things like what's happening in Fortnite or what happens even in LCS. All those games have opportunities for activations and to partner with companies.
I just
I
love
would think that
it's,
girls play fewer online games and interact more with social media online, where those algorithms can then tap into their interests.
I mean, I just love that there's something really actionable here, right? Right? If you're a marketing person and you're spending, the reality is you're just as good to spend on a video game ad channel in some way, right? Like, meaning through a video game, especially to reach boys age 13 to 17, than you are to run Facebook ads, which I don't think historically would have been common thinking or common feeling, right? Like, I don't think many marketers gut feel would have said that's the case today.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I mean, I guess the only thing that this doesn't account for is I think a lot of company, like with social media, you obviously usually get direct response. So it's like, you're getting immediate, often purchasing, whereas this is talking about grabbing attention. So that's incredibly valuable for like brand advertising. But I think you'd want, the next question would be, okay, what about purchase intent? And maybe, who knows, YouGov probably has that data, but that's obviously, would be something, if I'm an advertiser, I'm probably curious about that.
Can you pull up Wade's comment? Because this is actually the conclusion I was thinking about when you were pointing out the difference between girls and boys.
He says, I thought there'd be more of a correlation between video games and Twitch. That disparity is surprising to me. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know about the correlation, but what is surprising to me is how low the numbers are on Twitch.
I mean, I'm trying to think of why that would be. I can tell you.
And why live TV beats it out. Or online.
But can I give I have a thought, is that the one thing Twitch has done, which I think is horrible, is they've made all of their ads unskippable. And I think for the 13 to 17, attention span of a gnat, like if you have a 25, 30-second ad and they're running in a row and Twitch doesn't let you skip them, like the likelihood that age group pays attention to it, I don't know. It's a theory, but I do think Wade's right that maybe the bigger takeaway from this study is just how bad Twitch is at grabbing the attention of this category, because across the board, boys, girls, and overall. Please tell me one of you guys has a better theory on why live streaming platforms like Twitch are so bad.
I think your theory is the most compelling one that I can come up with. I mean, but it would be interesting to hear like what is Twitch's response to this, because this is fairly bearish. Like, I don't think anyone would say like, oh, live TV is better advertising channel than Twitch, or let me rephrase that. I think the narrative that we often pitch in the esports community, hey, if you want to reach boys age 13 to 17, like, you got to be on Twitch. You're crazy to not be on Twitch. And obviously this is percentage. So like, if the majority of eyeballs are on Twitch, you're still better off being on Twitch than being on live TV. But it is bad for Twitch that they seem to be less engaging than live TV. So I'd be curious, like, to hear what Twitch's response would be.
Jimmy, I point this at Jimmy because I want to make sure for next week, what I would love if we could get from YouGov is, and I'm sure we could, is I'd love to see how this changes for different age groups, right? Like if 18 to 25, if Twitch moves up the rankings here significantly, or if, 35 or 25 plus moves up significantly. I'd be curious to see how the demographics shift, which ad channel is most likely to grab a person's attention. Because that, I think, is going to be telling, because that, if you're an advertiser, if you're a marketer, right, and you're trying to reach boys age 13 to 17, maybe Twitch is not the right place.
Super relevant, right? Especially when you think about Gen Z and Gen Alpha that grew up with phones and that were always bombarded with ads and solicitations, that know how to just mentally, they have a much shorter attention span than millennials or older generational counterparts. And that's not because these kids are disinterested or have ADD or whatnot. It's because they're so used to the constant bombardment of ads that they're that much quicker in filtering the information, right? So yeah, definitely interested to see how this changes depending on what generation we look at. But again, incredibly actionable. I think not just from a video game company selling themselves, but also, right, obviously from an advertiser, like where am I putting my money?
And I think what's interesting is maybe it's the more subtle forms of advertising, right? Because social media, video games, I feel like the advertising is more subtle. It's not like, boom, you can't watch the video or the streamer until this ad finishes, right? Like maybe for that age group, it has to be more subtle for it to be effective.
Well, there's also, I mean, advertising like badge app icons, right, that are rotating in the corner that maybe don't captivate your attention, or I'm not sure what the reasoning is, right? There's a lot of, I don't want to say questions here, but there's a lot to unpack, definitely.
Cam says Twitch chat loses it during ad breaks. This is true. Every ad break on a Twitch channel is the same. You get the subscribers who like it's the sunglass emote. I don't see any ads. I don't know what your problem is. Like, just sub. You get the non-subscribers who complain. Why 8 ad breaks? And then you get the group that's like, why don't you have an ad blocker installed? Like, it's 2021. This is every Twitch chat when an ad break runs. Wade says, yeah, that live TV beats Twitch with this demographic is most surprising.
Yeah.
This is, and I'll wrap up on this, guys. This is why I love the YouGov data, because every time we do one of these, it's like you learn something that goes against maybe what you believed, and you realize how effectively data like this can be put into practice and actually monetized if you're a business. So definitely go check them out, guys. yougov.com/gaming-esports. It's stuff like this that for any business operating in and around gaming, you really have to be talking to them and pulling this kind of data that is relevant to you and who you're trying to reach, because it will really take your business to that next level. Cam says, exactly, Paul. That's exactly the chat. Yeah.
Of course you pull up that comment.
I will leave it up here if I have to. Okay.
It's covering my face.
All right, guys. Let's move on. We got a couple more stories here. We can talk about McDonald's and FaZe if you guys want. We can talk about Cedar Point and the esports arena there. McLaren Racing. Apex.
Let's talk about McLaren.
McLaren
Is this
sounds
about
cool.
Lando
Or
Norris?
Apex.
That's all I'm interested in.
This is about McLaren.
Give me my boy Lando.
Oops. Oh, not this. This is about McLaren opening an esports facility in the UK, believe it or not, in England. And basically the studio, so McLaren Racing opens esports facility in England is the headline here. It's going to consist of Alienware PCs and gaming monitors. Logitech is going to provide the pedals, racing wheels, headsets, and webcams. And basically fans are going to be allowed to visit this studio. So if you go, you will be able to visit the McLaren, what they call the McLaren Shadow Studio. It'll be the home for McLaren's esports team, the McLaren Shadow, and it'll be inside their headquarters. Not much more to the story than this, guys, but more overlap between F1 and gaming, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
More great sim kind of activations, which and sim sort of, I would argue, leading the way in some ways. What do you guys think? Curious.
Looks like I gotta go to Surrey.
Yeah. It's a bit weird that they want fans sort of just like crossing through their headquarters, like to go.
Well, what I see with this is, and it's funny because you see this in other esports, right, where you have like athletes, celebrities, investors, all these successful individuals who have children that are obsessed with esports, that are playing these video games. So maybe this is a play where I'm looking, I'm a successful father, I'm looking to buy my next luxury vehicle, and my kid wants to just go play esports at the McLaren facility. So yeah, I'll test drive the car and And I don't know if that's going to lead to
You're
the sale.
comparing it to like the little waiting area at the mall,
Yeah.
like you know. Like,
If that is the end game, it is incredibly clever.
while mom and dad go buy the McLaren, like here, like here's something for you to do.
Okay,
If it's
so to
not
turn
that,
this-
then it's
to
the
turn this
Porsche.
into a productive
for it.
conversation. Yeah. What I think is cool about this is, first of all, that I mean, I may get a joke about Lando Norris, but he does actually stream on Twitch, and we're seeing more crossover from professional athletes and other people in professional environments crossing over and streaming on Twitch in their free time. And what I think is cool about this is F1's really good about interactions between fans and teams. And this is a really unique way to interact, particularly with an athlete or with a professional that also streams on Twitch or is also into gaming and find that common interest. So in a broader conversation, it's not just like, me wanting to go to Surrey, England and possibly run into Lando Norris so I can probably make fun of him, but I love him. I think that it's cool that we're seeing more of these activations, and I do like that the fan experience is being brought in through esports, because I think that's a really good common ground for a lot of fans and professionals. So it's cool to see.
I don't think we can add any more than that, Lindsay. So well said. Wade says, like IKEA's ball pit. There you go. What a perfect way to wrap up that story. It's like IKEA's ball pit. Let's do some of these just like rapid fire here. I think that's how we get through these, because I think some of them are interesting. And I know someone on LinkedIn asked me to touch on this one, so I think we should comment. And this is Cedar Point's parent company developing an esports arena with 200 gaming station. So this is an amusement park operator in Sandusky, Ohio, and they're known for they own Knott's Berry Farm, among other things. They want to build a 1,500 seat esports arena in Ohio for gaming tournaments near this amusement park, and they want to also have in this arena 200 gaming stations. They want to host tournaments year round, and it says it could also be used for concerts and other events. We have a recurring series here, which is comment on the latest esports stadium / center. How do we feel about this one? 1,500 seats, $28 million arena. Okay, so much less than 500 million, and 200 gaming stations. I mean, this proves that the guys at Overactive Media have no clue how to build an arena cost effectively, right? I think we can get that out of the way.
But I think you glossed over one of the more important parts, and that's Sandusky, Ohio.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm not sure
the
what the
issue.
esports scene looks like there.
Well, Sandusky is central. Well, one, it's famously known from the movie Tommy Boy.
But
Yes.
isn't that
You
sort of
haven't seen
mid- no?
For
No,
anyone who is under
joking aside.
65, if you don't get that
right,
reference, it's okay.
If you haven't, if you're watching this and you haven't seen Tommy Boy, go watch Tommy Boy, because it's like a top 10 comedy movie of all time.
Chris
But
Farley may be the greatest of all time.
yeah, so
it was a great movie.
it might not be on Twitch, but it's worth your attention. So where was I with that? Sandusky is really centrally located. I think it's like an hour from Cleveland, Detroit, Michigan, basically any Midwest city. It's pretty centrally located too. And this amusement park, from what I understand, gets a ton of foot traffic. Like I actually think it's the biggest amusement park in the United States, which is kind of wild. So is 28 million a lot of money? Yeah. Is 1,500 probably the right size for this? Yeah. Like, I think this is the kind of arena you could fill with decent size, college esports, high school esports. It doesn't even have to also be esport. It could be graduation, stuff like that. I imagine, similar to how I would always talk about the Canada arena. Like, you don't build this and expect it to only be an esports arena. Like, there's plenty of uses for a 1,500 seat auditorium that have nothing to do with video games. So yeah, I mean, I think it could work.
I buy. So the size and the price I'm okay with, right? I sort of get it. It's going to be relatively smaller events, right? It's not going to get the LCS finals or anything, right? It's not going to get Dota TI, right? It's not going to get the big headlining events. It'll get some events for esports. Which ones, I'm not exactly sure. Okay. But where I struggle is why put arena and LAN center together? Why do those two things have to go together? Because I sort of get the arena argument given where it is. It's next to an amusement park. People plan a day or a weekend or whatever around a visit to an amusement park, right? I can see why they would plan an esports event around that. Hey, I'm going to go watch this big tournament with my friends, and then we're going to spend the next 2 days, at the amusement park, and we're going to make a 3-day weekend out of it, and it's going to be a blast. I sort of get that argument. It becomes more of a destination, and it gives you something else to do when you're already there. But the 200 gaming stations, other than on a rainy day at the amusement park, right? Why would anyone ever go there? Why would anyone drive out to Sandusky, Ohio to use one of the 200 gaming stations? Like, it felt to me like they had a good idea and then they went just a little too far with it. And guys, give me the reasoning why you would connect those two things.
So I can't remember the name of the person who was on your podcast who had small LAN centers that were in places like Indiana, or he started off in a place like Indiana. And
Zach from GG
Zach.
Circuit?
Yeah. And one of the things that I found really notable was him describing the desire for more of those, particularly in more rural areas where there's not great access to connections and equipment and all of that kind of stuff. I can see that being a possibility for why there's a LAN center here. I'm not 100% sold on the idea because I think you bring up a lot of good points, Paul. But I would assume that there was some type of research or backing that showed that there was a desire within the community out there and in the Midwest to have a center like that.
Lindsay, could it be that because amusement parks in Ohio, right, which gets snow and bad winters, right, that an amusement park in Ohio, unlike in Florida, is a seasonal business, and the 200-seat gaming stations for like November, December, January, when no one's going and riding a roller coaster in Sandusky?
Yeah.
Well, I think in addition, I think in addition to the amusement park, they also have like a big sporting complex. So I think as part of this project, there's some, they've got like 8 basketball courts, football fields, lacrosse fields. So there's going to be a big like camp scene and sort of bringing people, in that way. Also, I don't think Sandusky is as, remote as we're making it. It's very East Coast elite of us. Like, I think there's like people in Sandusky.
There.
Like, I don't think, we're making it seem like it's like, well, the only reason on earth you would ever go to, the only reason on earth you would ever be in Sandusky is to go to this water park. Like, there are like human beings that live there, I'm pretty sure, that may want to go to a LAN center.
I'm from the Midwest and I've been to Sandusky, so I can confidently say that there's like not a lot between Sandusky and the other cities in Ohio.
Lindsay, if this was a gas station, you'd be more bullish on it.
Well, no, I was actually going to bring that up because I was for sure going to bring that up because it is a little bit. One of the things that I have a lot of trouble gauging is the interest in more rural areas, because so much of what's done in esports and gaming is centered on cities and city-based things that I truly wonder like what the market research is like. And it was really interesting to hear Zach's perspective on GG Circuit and how the original LAN center in Indiana did so great because the demand there is really high. So like I said, I'm not 100% sold on this, but Jeff, I think you make a lot of good points about the centrality of this particular location in proximity to a lot of other cities. The other thing is like people who live out there are used to freaking driving for things. Like driving an hour or 2 hours to get to a decent LAN center is like not something that is going to off-put anyone from going to it. So I have a lot of trouble gauging that audience because so much of what we talk about and so much of what we do is centered in cities. And I'm really curious to see the data that actually comes out of this in terms of like who's coming, how much it's used, all of that.
And I like what the data shows. I mean, like we're talking about amusement parks, right, that are trying to attract different audiences. I think, amusement parks aren't just about rides. These are immersive experiences, like this whole Star Wars, which we're probably not going to cover on the show, but the whole Star Wars 2 night, I don't know if you guys saw that, the overnight stay at the new Star Wars immersive Westworld kind of experience. It's like $5,000 or something, and it looks awesome, but also incredibly expensive. But back to the point, these amusement parks that are like, hey, this isn't just for someone to come on a ride, right? We have kids that are scared of rides, or we have kids that are more interested in gaming. We have kids that want to go to the movie theater or the IMAX lounge or whatever it is. So I want to tie this in with a personal anecdote where right before COVID, I was actually negotiating with an amusement park outside in New Jersey, the American Dream. If you elite East Coasters are more familiar with that one, I think Nickelodeon has some involvement there as well. And we were talking about doing a live gaming event with a tier 1 esports org that I was representing. And again, that was more to anything to me. It was telling that you have these owners of these unique live experiences that were looking to attract new people, or just looking to provide another experience to their existing foot traffic where it's just one more thing for them to offer. So it's fun to hate on things and to joke about this or that, but when you look at it, I think seriously, since Lindsay took the fun and all the wind out of my sails on the last story, when you look at things from a business perspective, it's just very cool to see these very large businesses from certain industries that we might not immediately relate to esports, and even they are finding ways to adapt and to incorporate into service, I think, what's clearly a need. And to Clinton's point from the show, if anyone hasn't listened last week when we had Clinton Sparks from XSET, him kind of saying, hey, esports is the nexus of popular culture the way hip hop was for the last 10, 15 years. This is evidence of that, right? I think so. Look for look for Six Flags, look for Disneyland, other theme parks, I think, to hopefully follow suit. I would love if this was in Los Angeles or San Diego or somewhere that I could drive to personally.
And let me just add one thing to that, Jimmy, which I think is such a good thought. Fundamentally, the price tag here is what makes all the difference for me, right? Like, I couldn't get behind the overactive stadium because the price tag meant there was almost no chance of generating some kind of return on investment. Like, let's not downplay how much the price you pay to build something or to buy something matters in terms of, does this make good business sense or not, right? Fundamentally, it's probably half of the equation. Yes, it has to make sense from an audience and strategy standpoint, but like trying to recoup 28 million versus 500 million, world's different now in terms of how you can utilize it. You don't need to have it booked 300 nights a year. You don't have to have every seat filled on every night, right? Like the bar just gets lower, and now the chance of success goes up. And for that reason, I like it. And it seems like a much more reasonable and well thought out attempt at doing something in esports. Jeff, I don't know if you had thoughts on that. You were shaking your head.
I agreed particularly with the, I feel like I always tend to be the one on this podcast, I feel like, who says that, where it's like a lot of things can be good investments at the right price. Like, we tend, to just think about the revenue side of things and the strategy, and like, oh, that's a good idea, or that's a good company. But like, it matters where you buy things, right? Like, you could have bought Microsoft in 2002 and it was like, Microsoft, the greatest company of all time, but you literally didn't make, the stock was basically down to flat for like 15 years. Like, you just started, being, in the money there. So if you're overpaying for things, it matters. What you pay matters.
Guys, do we want to do, before we wrap up here, anyone play anything interesting this week? We want to do a quick one here.
Let's do it. Quick one.
I can't even remember what I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. I'm trying to think about what I did the past week. It's not there. Oh, I redid my roof. That's why. No time for games. Just a lot of roofing.
Well, I asked
Jimmy?
for it, so I'll go. It was just funny because we talked about it earlier in today's segment. I and my group is so sick of Call of Duty and all the cheating. We played Apex last night for about 2 hours. I am terrible at it, but I feel like I could get good. It was a lot of fun. I think the characters there's a little racism there with some of the characters. I don't know if that's just me, but like, I don't know. I thought
They try
I'm
and
just a new-
position themselves as a very diverse, friendly game.
Okay. Well, okay. It came. One of my squad mates is Hawaiian from Hawaii, and there is a big Samoan character in there, and he couldn't stop laughing about
Gibraltar.
how spot on Gibraltar was. So maybe that anecdote helps. We had so much fun with it. Got completely destroyed within the first circle every time. But I think we're gonna play it again until at least New World comes out, if it ever gets released now after this delay. We really liked it.
So the Apex announced that at some point made big waves when they announced that Gibby Gibraltar was a gay character. I don't know if you had seen that.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah.
I did
So
see
they have
some other
tried
rainbow
to
packs that you could purchase. That was pretty cool.
But I love Gibby's actually my main. So there you go.
Good. I'll try him out next time we play.
There you go. Jeff, I know you played
Nothing.
something.
When?
You showed me a picture.
That was like
not technically.
That was like 3 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. I sent Paul a picture. I was playing Madden and listening to old episodes of the podcast on my computer. But I think that was I don't think that was this weekend. I think it was
Because we didn't do the segment last week, and you got upset.
So there
at
you
me.
go. Yes. Yeah.
man.
So I did play some Madden. I know the new one's coming out in a couple weeks. I will definitely download it and play.
Got to get that
I'll
roster.
be camping out in front of Best Buy. His Eagles
I used to,
Yeti mug.
I used to be able to get the code from EA, but no longer.
No longer.
Esports Entertainment Group doesn't have the same pull, I guess.
Cam has a different idea. Maybe we get rid of this segment. Biz Esports movie night. Juice recommendations only.
I would last like 3 minutes.
And Lowell says the profit to buy Microsoft. Noted. Let's break the bank for this. No stock advice on this podcast. No, this is not a recommendation to buy shares in any company, just to be clear.
If you could go back in time and buy Microsoft like 20 years ago, I'd highly recommend it. That's my advice to you.
That is technically not any kind of forward-looking statement, so we're okay. Cam says, bit of Warzone. Damn cheaters, not much
Damn
else.
cheaters.
Cam, you got to get off Warzone, Cam. This dead game. It's dead game. Sounds like a great Sunday. Jeff Madden, an old podcast. Nice. There you go. Guys, on that note, that wraps up this week's live stream, or our Business of Esports weekly news live. As for now, though it's a bit of a mouthful. We'll come up with something better, I'm sure. And I hope you guys had fun. Thank you for participating. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Lindsay, Jeff, Jimmy, all of you guys. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us everywhere, guys. Instagram, Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Tell your friends about the live stream. The more of you in here, the more fun it is. To all the regulars, thank you guys for coming every week. We really appreciate you. And as always, guys, we will see you next week.